вчинено шляхом обману, шахрайство вчинене за попередньою змовою групою осіб особливо великих розмірів, тобто вчинення кримінального правопорушення, передбачено частиною 4 статті 190 Кримінального кодексу України, чинно до 11.08.2023 року, а також використання розпорядження майном, щодо якого фактично обставини свідчать про одержання злочинним шляхом, в особливо великому розмірі за попередньою змовою групою осіб, тобто вчинення кримінального правопорушення, передбачено частиною 3 статті 209 Кримінального кодексу України. З повним текстом повідомлення можете ознайомитися, воно вам буде залишене, вам буде роз'яснені права, маєте право скористуватися правовою допомогою. України повідомляє вам.
As Ukraine continues to grapple with the Russia onslaught, the country is facing yet another war, a seemingly unending war with the long prevailing epidemic of corruption. Well, Ukraine's reputation for widespread corruption is tied to how its oligarchs have looted the country using two key strategies. Number one, raiding companies, and number two, bank frauds. And powerful businessman Igor Kolomoysky is the latest domino to fall in a fraud and money laundering case. Let's tell you more about this. First, let's tell you about the case. Well, according to the Security Service of Ukraine, it was established that during 2013 and 2020, Kolomoysky legalized more than $500 million hryvnia, which that is around $14 million. He did that by withdrawing them abroad and also using the infrastructure of banks under his control. Now, you may ask as to who is this oligarch we're talking about here. Let's tell you about that. Kolomoysky is one of Ukraine's richest men. He is a former owner of Ukraine's private bank named Privata Bank, which was nationalized in late 2016 as a part of a cleanup of the banking system in the country. While Kolomoysky is also the owner of a TV channel, which is called 1+1, and it also aired a comedy show where Ukraine's actor turned president, Volodymyr Zelensky, starred as a president. Well, he's also known to have backed Zelensky's bid for the presidency in the country. Now, the recent allegation of money laundering is not a first move against him. His home was raided in February this year as a part of a separate investigation into embezzlement and also tax evasion at the country's two largest oil companies named Ukranafta and Uktatnafta, which are both partially owned by this oligarch that we are talking about here. Meanwhile, in 2021, the United States also imposed sanctions on him in 2021, like I mentioned, alleging significant corruption charges, and during his time as the governor of the wider Dnipropetrovsk region, where he denied any wrongdoing. Now, a major effort to root out corruption is sweeping Ukraine as of now. And here are some of them we listed out for you. Number one, former head of the State Property Fund, Dmytro Senchevko. This person here, he was charged with misappropriation of $13.5 million worth of state funds in the country. Former military commissioner of Odessa, Yevhen Borisov, he was accused of accepting bribes and purchasing luxury real estate and also expensive cars. He was dismissed from his post and arrested when these allegations surfaced. Meanwhile, the head of the country's Supreme Court was also detained by the Ukrainian law. We're talking about Vezvlod Knyazhev. He's the head of Ukraine's Supreme Court, and he was detained in a $2.7 million bribery inquiry. And the head of Donetsk recruitment office was arrested after he allegedly sent preferred subordinates to join a combat brigade in the Ukrainian armed forces. While the men never took part in combat missions, they, however, were fully paid. Now, fighting corruption has also become crucial to Ukraine's efforts to build an alliance with Europe as it seeks EU membership. In recent years, the Ukrainian government has implemented a number of reforms, including the establishment of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. Moreover, President Zelensky named victory over corruption as a cornerstone of his presidency in the 2019 polls and also implemented reforms prior to the Russian invasion as well. However, political experts say that his efforts have had mixed results in the country, and controversy continues to surround Zelensky's approach to combat corruption in Ukraine.
Okay, Laura Loomer joins us. Laura, this was the media immediately said that this was all Trump supporters, these Nazis or neo-Nazis or whatever they are down in Florida, that this is all Trump people and this is Trump backers. What's the reality here? You went down there. Tell us exactly what happened, who these people are, and are they supporters of President Trump?
Yeah, so I actually was down there just by coincidence. I actually was getting my hair done this weekend in that area. It's called Altamont Springs in the Central Florida area. And when I was driving back from the salon, I saw all these Nazis with swastika flags on the side of the road. So I decided to pull over and start filming them because I wanted to see like who was organizing this event. And it was organized by a group called the Goyim Defense League, and they are a Nazi organization, and they partnered with another Nazi white supremacist group called Blood Tribe to have this rally. And, immediately you see on Twitter people saying, oh my God, there's all these Nazis in Florida. They're Trump supporters. They're Republicans. And so I started talking to some of them and filming them. And in one of the clips, one of the guys says that they're not, you can see they're screaming at me, calling me K-I-K-E, and because I'm Jewish. And they said, we're not going to vote for Trump, Laura. We don't vote for the K-I-K-E wing because they don't like the fact that Donald Trump is pro-Israel and pro-Jewish. And they kept on telling me to go get in an oven. They said that I should go die because I'm Jewish. And then they said that they support Biden because Biden is sending money to Ukraine and rockets. And you can actually hear that clip. And so you had immediately like Democrat progressive lawmakers, like
Hold it. Whoa. Hang on. Slow down. They said they support Biden because of his position in the Ukraine. Why would a bunch of American Nazis be supporting Biden sending money to Ukraine?
Well, as we know, our taxpayer dollars are being used to fund Nazi militias in Ukraine in their fight against the Russians. And one of those Nazi militias is the Azov Battalion. And dating back all the way to even 2014, where you have the CIA propped up Nazi militia group known as Right Sector, the United States government has actually been using American Nazis, as I discovered this weekend, and they're sending them overseas to fight in Ukraine against the Russians. And one of the individuals who I actually encountered and caught on camera at this rally was a Nazi by the name of Kent Boneface McClellan. And he has tattoos all over his face. And he was actually arrested in the state of Florida in 2012 on charges of domestic terrorism. And I noticed him because he kept on shouting Slava Ukraine at this rally while he was Sieg Heiling in my face and, shouting Heil Hitler. And I was like, wow, that guy has a Slavic accent. It's almost like he's Ukrainian. And I started looking into him, and it turns out that he was actually arrested for domestic terrorism in Florida by the FBI. And then the CIA picked him up, and he went to go work in Ukraine as part of one of these Nazi militias. The CIA recruited him in 2014.
Hang on. Whoa. Slow down. How do we know as a fact that the CIA recruited this guy after he was arrested for domestic terrorism in Florida by the FBI? How do you know that?
Well, first of all, you can't get on a plane or travel internationally after you've been charged with domestic terrorism and arrested by the FBI unless you have some sort of clearance. And there's actually video interviews of him with international media outlets talking about how he was working with the CIA and how some people think that he's with the FBI, but actually the agency partnered with him and he went overseas. And there's videos of him in Ukraine, and nobody really put two and two together. And so what I want to know is, why is it that domestic terrorists are being recruited by our government to fight with Nazis in Ukraine? We constantly hear Joe Biden say things like, oh, I ran for president against Donald Trump because he said that Nazis were very good people. And they like to say that white supremacy is the biggest problem in our country. But it turns out these Nazis aren't for Trump. They're for Biden. And they said it on camera. If you play the clip, it's gone viral. The video has millions of views on my Twitter account now.
Do we have that clip? Can we play that clip, Denver?
So when you look who showed up! Oh my God, Lord!
Let me have it, because you got to mute. Here's the problem. We've got it. Denver, let me have it back. The language is so bad. The language is so bad that you can't play it on our television distribution partners, Laura. So walk me through. We'll cut it out and then play it. What?
I sent that clip over.
Do we have that one, guys?
They have it. It's on my Twitter.
Okay. Okay. Laura, we'll try to pull it up. But give me once again where they say they support Biden.
So I'll just pull it up right now and retweet it, and then they can play it. But there's a video clip here. I just retweeted it right again. It's at the top of my page. So you can play it directly from my Twitter. The guy's saying that they support Joe Biden, and they directly cite his support for Ukraine. They said, we don't like Trump, and we prefer Biden over Trump because he's going to send more money and rockets to Ukraine. And so these Nazis are supporters of the Azov battalion. Some of these individuals have actually traveled overseas to fight in Ukraine with Nazis, and they're able to just roam the streets of Florida freely, even after this individual, Boneface, was arrested by the FBI on charges of domestic terrorism. So it's really interesting. And you see really just how, this plays in to what some are calling a color revolution, because if you go back to the time of the Charlottesville Nazi rally, which took place several years ago, and that was the premise for Joe Biden filing to run for president, there were actually FOIA'd FBI documents that showed that there were Ukrainian Nazis who were in touch with our intelligence agencies who were on the ground at Charlottesville. And there's also been reports of Ukrainians who were at the Capitol on January 6th. And as I exclusively reported this weekend, and Newsweek even picked up my report and re-reported it, I broke a story about how the FBI has been hiding from the public the fact that they actually interrogated Jacob Chansley, who is, a famous January 6th defendant, the guy who was wearing the Viking horns. And they asked him, how do you know this Ukrainian spy? Because there was a Ukrainian spy at the Capitol by the name of Sergei Dubinin, who took a photo with Jacob Chansley, and Jacob had no idea who he was. And the FBI confirmed to Jacob in a private interrogation meeting in which his lawyer was present, in which he said that this guy was a Ukrainian spy. And Jacob didn't know who he is. And so what I'm saying is that this was an act of war. If Ukraine did actually have Ukrainian spies, which we know to be true since the FBI confirmed it in their interrogation of Jacob Chansley, nobody knew about this until I exposed it. That's an act of war. You're talking about Ukraine sending spy operatives to penetrate the United States Capitol on January 6th. And then this guy hasn't been arrested. They never told us publicly that Ukrainian spies penetrated the Capitol on January 6th. And then we send them $200 billion of our taxpayer money. I mean, this is an abomination. And that would be evidence of color revolution tactics at the United States Capitol on January 6th that Joe Biden and our intelligence agencies need to respond to.
Did the progressive left, because they pushed this hard, when this thing first happened in Florida the other day, they were pushing it that these were all Trump supporters. Have they backed off at all since you've come out with your video when you went down there and they were calling you out saying they support Biden and they hate Trump because they hate the right that supports Israel? Has the progressive left now seen that these guys are actually on their side?
Well, they haven't deleted their tweets, which would be the honorable thing to do. But I essentially killed their narrative because they were going to run with a ton of news stories talking about how these people were conservatives and Trump supporters. And that Biden clip I posted in a retweet responding to Representative Anna Eskamani, who's a radical progressive Democrat from the state of Florida. And I said, how are you going to say that these are Trump supporters when they're saying that they support Biden because of the Ukraine war? And again, that clip is at the top of my Twitter account for people that want to watch it. There's a skinhead by the name of Christopher Paulhaus, who is a Nazi, who several reports have shown that he has a compound in Maine, a neo-Nazi compound that he shares with a Democrat operative. And so these people, this is documented, and I've reported on this extensively this weekend. It's all cited and sourced. None of this is a quote unquote conspiracy theory, but everything leads back to the Democrats. And ironically, and it's quite disturbing, I'd say, it all leads back to Ukraine as well. And so this is a massive scandal to see that these domestic terrorists, and this individual Boneface in particular, who was charged with domestic terrorism, and it was all over the mainstream media in 2012, is now being utilized as an intelligence asset by the CIA to fight on the front lines in Ukraine against Russians.
Before I let you go, I know you've been focused a lot because this supplemental, they got another supplemental coming up on Ukraine. Here we got a $2 trillion deficit. We haven't done any cuts to what was promised to people. And all these people that said we're going to use the appropriations process, Massey, MTG, all of them, that's all been a lie. None of that's happened. Yet they're throwing in a supplemental for Ukraine of another, I think, $30 billion, of which they're going to hold hostage any aid that goes to the good folks in Maui and some other locations around the country. You're saying you can connect this Nazi movement here in this country that really hates President Trump, hates MAGA, hates America first, and you can tie that to intelligence operations of Ukrainians here in the United States? Absolutely.
And not only just Ukrainians here in the United States, but evidence that these American Nazis, well, at least this one Nazi in particular, Boneface, whose real name is Kent McClellan, was actually given Ukrainian citizenship and a Ukrainian passport in return for fighting in the Azov battalion. And so, yes, this is what our taxpayer dollars are funding. And you can see the report yourself. These are violent criminals. These are people who have been arrested. Some of them have served prison time for violent crimes. They've been arrested in FBI domestic terror plots. And it's concerning because they're endangering people's lives. And, it kind of reminds me of all these times we see stories of mass shooters, whether they're Islamic terrorists or white supremacists. And always somewhere down the line, we find out that, oh, the FBI was actually monitoring them, or, oh, they were actually in a DHS database. Yeah. And, this is why. This is how these things happen, because the intelligence agencies in our country, they embolden these people to carry out acts of violence and war crimes. Yeah. And the video is there. Your team has it. They should play it. They should really play that clip because it's really shocking. We'll put it up. Why don't you, how do people get to your social media? Where do they go? So you can follow me on Twitter and Getter at Laura Loomer. I posted all these videos on Twitter at Laura Loomer. I'm also on Truth Social and Gab at Laura Loomer. And then if you want to read the report that I'm going to be releasing this week on this with more information, go to lauraloomer.substack.com. That's lauraloomer.substack.com, and please subscribe.
Considering Zelensky was created by Igor Kolomoysky, who was Hunter Biden's business partner. And when the Bidens could no longer protect Kolomoysky and his billions that he embezzled during the Ukraine conflict, Kolomoysky did the next best thing. He made his own president. He took his prize actor from his TV series or TV station and groomed him to be the president, got him elected. So now he doesn't have to worry. First thing Zelensky did when he got elected was the privatization of Pravda Bank, which was Igor's bank. He made that illegal, so Igor could have his bank back, have his money back, and return to the country. So it was, to watch what's happening in Ukraine happen all over again, it's scary. Except this time we're sending 40 billion instead of 18 billion.
Цього тижня наші прикордонники отримали мобільні комплекси медичної підтримки від Нідерландів. Нідерланди взагалі серед лідерів в оборонній співпраці з Україною, в політичній взаємодії, реально захищають життя, гуманітарний вимір і теж змістовний. Я дякую за це людям Нідерландів. Дякую всім, Марк. Дякую тобі.
We stand with you. Slava Ukraini.